on the face value, and according to the main charge, President Maduro is charged with furtherance of drug trafficking into the United States of America, what is called narco terrorism. That is what the United States is arguing. But like you said, there are many people who seem to dispute that. But basically, that is the charge. Furtherance of drug trafficking into the United States of America and narco terrorism, meaning using drugs or proceeds from drugs
minor injuries and were taken
advance terrorist activities. That is the charge.
Maduro has obviously appeared in a U.S. court, and he's of course questioning the legitimacy and the jurisdiction of that court. Could you maybe speak to us about these charges? Of course, you mentioned they include drug trafficking, but then also possession of machine guns. At point, what do you make of this case when it comes to court?
Or if you have any new information,
we have an international governance system.
Therefore, I'm requesting the
Namibians
to pray
an international government,
and the other occupants,
but you have a governance system.
And also,
basically, the Charter of the United Nations,
he will be soon,
as well as
in the
international law. And these two instruments contain values and principles, including on how to deal with interstate relations, as well as the relations between states and nations. The Charter of the United Nations, in terms of its principles, why it was established, is to save succeeding generations from the scourge of wars. It also reaffirms fairness in fundamental human rights, or faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity of every person, and in the equality of both small and large states. Therefore, any abduction of a head of state is inconsistent with the Charter of the United Nations, as well as with international law, because what it does is to bring criminality in the affairs of global issues. Therefore, it cannot be supported. So we will hear how the court will proceed, but on the basis of the principles and values of the Charter of the International of the United Nations, as well as on international law, it seems to be problematic because it doesn't respect the values and the principles that are contained herein, and states are expected to adhere to these values and principles.
All right. Well, one question that has also come up since Maduro's arrest is, of course, the question of his security personnel on the day. Of course, President Donald Trump boasted that the capture happened without a single shot being fired. But what does this tell us about the president's security on the day?
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of the adequacy of the security or not. If you recall, this took a lot of time in terms of planning, and then it was executed. And it was executed by the most strong military state in the world. Right. So I think there were shootings, there were casualties somewhere, that is not the matter. The matter is whether it is acceptable for a state that claims to uphold democracy and human rights to bring abduction as a normality in how matters are supposed to be handled. To answer your question, the military strength of the United States is known. Therefore, it is not a matter whether another state has the military capability to resist. The question is whether it is acceptable in terms of the Charter of the United Nations and international law for a state to invade and abduct a president of another country, irrespective of what that president has done. What are the implications of that on the values and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, for example? So that is the question. The question is not whether the military or the security of the president was supposed to respond. The question is it correct for another state to bring criminality in global affairs and in interstate relations? That is the question.
Right. And now, of course, we have this concern that has come up now as far as the U.S. Taking control of Venezuela's oil reserves, undermining the authority of Latin America. What are the possible implications of this arrest on the Latin American region?
The implications are not on Latin America. The implications is on international governance systems. Is on the principles that are contained in international law, the principles that are contained in the Charter of the United Nations, which is respect for the sovereignty of states and the equality of states, whether big or small. Now, if interest of states supersedes any values and principles, then the future of global affairs, the future of interstate relations is at stake. Meaning, many people are arguing that the abduction of the president is to bring about a regime change and to have access to the resources of Venezuela, especially oil and other resources. The point that I'm making is, if that is the principle of interstate relation, that when you are powerful, then you must access to resources of other states by military means. Are these the values and principles that we want to advance? Therefore, it is not only Latin America that must be concerned. It is the world that must be concerned. And the concern of the world is grounded into the principles and values of how states are supposed to behave, how states are supposed to handle conflict, how states are supposed to relate to each other. These are the questions that are at stake. And the state that is bringing criminality in international governance affairs is the state that claims to uphold human rights, human dignity, democracy. Obviously, there is a danger in the world by one state. That is the concern that everyone must have.
All right. Now, obviously, the world is looking at the big nations, and they often negotiate, and we see the conflicts as far as this is my backyard type of thing. What are the implications as far as the other big nations, Russia, China? What does this the message that this sends out to them particularly?
Yeah, obviously they are concerned. You have seen that they have expressed themselves on the matter, expressing their concern. But you must understand that the United Nations is a multilateral system in what was created to deal with global issues. Therefore, this issue must not be a concern of big or small states. It must be a concern of the world. But we must also understand that the United Nations is a member organization. It is the membership of the United Nations that must address global issues. So it's not a matter of China or Russia. They have expressed themselves. It is a matter of the globe, the member states of the United Nations, that must pay the way forward on this matter that had serious implications on international governance system, on the Charter of the United Nations. So the countries that you have mentioned are concerned. But at the same time, you are seeing what we always see and describe as the hypocrisy and selective morality of international affairs. You have not seen all the countries condemning what is happening, especially your European countries that are very vocal about Russia, Ukraine, and others. They are not very vocal on this issue. They are saying, let's wait and see, or the tone is very soft. So international affairs is depending on who is doing wrong, and they support even if there is no support that is needed. So my answer to your question is, it's not a matter of a single state. It's a matter of the whole world on the basis of values and principles. Because today is Latin America, but if you support this, it can happen with any country. That's why it is a great concern for the whole world that we are bringing in criminality as a norm, as a principle in the affairs of state, in how we handle matters. It cannot be acceptable, and it cannot be accepted as a norm, as normal. It must be condemned. It's not right.